Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Doc Junel. The subject at hand is Human Anatomy and Physiology. And for this video, we are going to be talking about Chapter 4 or tissues. I decided to divide this topic into two videos. So for this one, the first part will be talking about tissues in general and then the epithelial tissues. And then in the second video, we'll be discussing connective tissues, muscular, and then nervous tissues. If you're ready, then let's start. Alright, so first let's define what tissues are. Tissues are a group of cells, and usually these cells have the similar structure and function, plus they are accompanied by an extracellular substance. So from the word itself, extracellular, they are found outside of the cells or in between the group of cells. Okay? So in the picture below, you can see the different types of cells found in the body. And on the picture on the right, these are the extracellular substances found in between these cells. So we'll be discussing them in detail as we go along. Histology is the study of tissues. And when you get to your second semester in second year, or yeah, I'm just not sure, no, but you will have this subject also in your medical technology journey. And then when we say pathology, it is the study of diseased or abnormal tissues, which you will also study once you get into third year. Now, there are four types of tissues all over the body, and these are epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. So, as to the details about them, let's just discuss them as we go through. So, the first type of tissue are epithelial tissues. Now, the main function of your epithelial tissue is for protection and covering of surfaces found inside and outside the body. So when it protects the surface of an organ or the surface of the body, it is called a covering epithelium. And when it is found inside an organ or found inside the body, it's called a lining epithelium. So here, we have a picture of the stomach. So this is the stomach, and then we magnified the wall of the stomach. So this is the wall, no? So as you can see, there are several layers composing or comprising the wall of the stomach. And the outermost surface or layer of the stomach, it is composed of a covering epithelium. And then the innermost layer or the innermost surface is called the lining epithelium. So that is how our epithelial tissues actually function. They cover an organ or they cover the entirety of the body. And yung mga loob ng mga organs natin, yung loob ng mga hollow organs, they also line them. Yeah. Aside from covering and protection, our epithelial tissues are also the building blocks of our glands. And ano ba yung mga glands? Glands are secretory organs that produces different types of substances. And there are two types of glands, your exocrine and your endocrine. So later on, towards the latter part of the discussion, we will be talking about glands also. Now, what are the characteristics of our epithelial tissues? Number one, di ba we mentioned that tissues are composed of cells and extracellular substance. But what is special about epithelial tissues is that they are mostly composed of cells and they have little to sometimes they don't even have any extracellular matrix. Okay, tandaan yun. Epithelial, composed of many cells, and they have very little, and sometimes they don't even have extracellular substances. Secondly, we've already mentioned they cover body surfaces or organ surfaces. The third is that these epithelial tissues have an exposed or free surface. So when we say free surface, that is the topmost layer. In this image of the tissue, the red highlighted part is the free surface. the topmost. Yan. Kaya siya free surface, we call it free surface because nothing is attached on top of it. Alright? There's nothing on top of it anymore, so it's free. And then, the one that is attached to the bottom, to those underlying substances, we call that the basal surface, which is highlighted by that green line. Okay? So, free surface is the topmost surface. Wala na siyang nakadikit sa kanya. There's no more attachments to it. And then, the bottom surface, the one that is attached to the underlying substances, we call it basal surface. Now, we said na sa free surface, usually they don't have any attachments, right? But there are also some instances where epithelial tissues will have cell connections and matrix attachments. So, minsan may mga nakadikit din, which later on we will go to. Another important characteristic of your epithelial tissues is that they are avascular. What do we mean by avascular? This means that they do not have blood vessels. Okay? They do not have blood vessels. So, how do they get their nourishment? How do they get their oxygen, their nutrients? They get them through diffusion. Okay? Nakukuha nila yan through diffusion. And lastly, they are capable of regeneration. Okay? Now, here is another picture of our epithelium. So, as you can see here, they have little to no, sometimes they don't even have extracellular substances. So, as you can see here, this is one epithelial cell, another epithelial cell, another one. So, they are next to each other. In Tagalog, dikit-dikit sila. At walang mga pumapagitna sa kanila. So, they are next to each other. Here is a side view of your epithelial cells as well. And as mentioned, they are next to each other, they are adjacent to each other, and they have little to no substances found in between them. Of course, those dark staining particles in the middle are your nuclei. Also here, you see them right in the middle of the cell. Now, we mentioned that the basal surface of the epithelium is attached to the underlying substances. And as we can see here, we have the free surface and the basal surface. The basal surface is the bottommost layer of the epithelial tissue. And they are attached to what we call the basement membrane. Yan. So what is the role of your basement membrane? It functions as a filter and a barrier to cell transport. So remember, there are no blood vessels in your epithelial tissues. So they have to rely on the diffusion of substances. Now, in order to control those substances that will be diffused, the basement membrane acts as a filter and barrier to make sure that only gases, nutrients pass through and waste products are removed from the epithelium. Now, there is a disease called basement membrane disease wherein the basement membrane thickens, kumakapal, no? Due to the increased production of collagen and laminin. And by logic, if the basement membrane is thickened, then there will be a hard time for gases, nutrients, and waste products to diffuse. So, what will happen to the epithelium? It will be starved. Magugutom yung epithelium. And the epithelium or the epithelial tissue will be damaged. Now, going specifically to the functions of the epithelial tissue, we've already mentioned a few of them. They act as a protection for the underlying structures such as our skin, di ba? Ang skin natin, it's composed of epithelial tissues. They cover, di ba, the surface of the body. And they are also found in our mouth. So when you touch the cheeks of your mouth, yung parang slimy area, that's actually composed of epithelial tissues. They protect the mouth from trauma whenever we eat or whenever we drink. Secondly, they act as a barrier. So again, going back to the skin, no? The skin acts as a barrier by keeping bacteria out and reducing water loss. So, yung skin natin is very important, made up of epithelial tissues, no? Because it prevents water loss. Kaya in patients who are burned, no, those who experience first, second, or third degree burn, they do not die because of pain. They do not die because of um, infection. They die because of dehydration. Third, another important function of your epithelial tissues is that they permit the passage of substances. And later on, we will find out which specific type of epithelial tissue can do this. Number four, as we mentioned, they are the building block of our glands. And number five, they are also important for absorption. So later, we'll find out which type of epithelium are responsible for each of this function. Okay, so epithelial tissues are classified according to two ways. First is the number of cell layers. And secondly, the shape of the superficial cell. So superficial or yung cells on the free surface. Okay. So according to cell layer, we have three types: simple, stratified, and pseudo-stratified. And then according to shape, we have four types: squamous, cuboidal, columnar, and then transitional. What I want you to understand is that we can apply yung number of layers to each cell shape. Meaning, when we have an epithelium that is only a single layer of squamous, we call it simple squamous. Kapag one layer of cuboidal, we say simple cuboidal. Pero kapag multiple layers na siya or more than one layer, we call it stratified squamous or stratified cuboidal or stratified columnar. Okay? So when we describe epithelial tissues, we usually describe first the number of layers followed by the cell shape. So, when we say simple epithelium, it means a single layer of cells. So, itong mga cells na ito, as we can see in the image, they are attached to the bottom, to your basement membrane, and then they have a free surface. Okay? And then we label our epithelial tissues based on the cell type on the free surface. Yun, okay? Yeah. Pag stratified epithelium, they are composed of more than one layer of cells. But only the basal layer is attached to the basement membrane. So as we can see here, it's only the bottommost layer that is directly attached to your basement membrane. And all the rest are stacked on top of each other. And then the topmost layer is your free surface. Now, there is a special type of epithelium which is called pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium. So, pseudo-stratified, it means falsely stratified. So, pseudo means false or fake. Again, it's a special type of epithelium. Now, why is it called fake or falsely stratified? Because as you can see in this image, it looks like there are several layers, right? Kasi look at the shape of them, no? Parang composed of several layers. There is a layer at the bottom, there is a layer on top. But the truth is, it is only one layer of cells. And all these cells are all attached to the basement membrane. Okay? Diba yun, that's the description of your simple epithelium. All the cells are attached to the basement membrane. So, the reason why they appear stratified is because of the variations in the shape. Like, look at this. This cell looks bigger on top but is very thin at the bottom. While this cell is the opposite. It's very thick at the bottom but it thins out towards the top. So since there is a change in the shape, no, there is a variation, it appears like it's multiple layers. Moreover, the location of their nucleus also adds to that falsely stratified appearance, 'di ba? May mga nucleus sa taas, may mga nucleus sa bottom. That's why it looks like it's stratified, but it's really not. Now, when it comes to shape, So we're done already with the layers, no? Simple, stratified, and then pseudo-stratified. When it comes to the shape, we have three major types. These are squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. So very straightforward. When we say squamous, they are flat, as you can see here. From the top view and the side view, you can really see that they are flat. Scale-like, no? Para silang kaliskis, napakanipis. Next are your cuboidal. So from the name itself, they appear cube-like. And they have equal width and length. Meaning, in Tagalog, pantay yung haba at yung lapad. That's why they appear square and sometimes they even appear circular. Lastly, we have columnar cells. And very straightforward as well. From the word column, they appear very tall and very thin. Okay? Now, we are now going to apply the layer and the shape. We're gonna combine them. And the first type of epithelium we have is simple squamous epithelium. Simple meaning single layer, squamous meaning thin, flat cells. A special function of your simple squamous epithelium is exchange of substances. So as said in the second bullet, they allow some substances to pass through, but some substances are not allowed to pass through. So basically, they are found in organs of the body where an exchange of substances is vital, such as in the alveoli of the lungs. Remember that it might come out in the exam. In the alveoli of the lungs, it's composed of simple squamous because there should be gas exchange. This is the appearance of our alveoli in the lungs. So as you can see, very thin, yung layers, no, those are your alveolus, composed of simple squamous. So what happens ba in the lungs? When we inhale, we take oxygen. And when we exhale, we remove carbon dioxide. So there should be an exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our lungs. And naaalaw yung passage or naaalaw yung exchange na yon by your simple squamous epithelium. Secondly, it's also found in your kidneys. Why? Because in your kidneys, it functions to filter waste products. Diba? So, dapat in the kidneys, there should also be quick exchange of nutrients and waste products. Okay? And then lastly, last example are your blood vessels. So again, yung blood vessels natin, they function similarly. Our blood vessels bring oxygen to the different parts of our body and it takes up the waste, no? Tinatanggal niya yung mga dumi, the different parts of our body. So there should also be exchange. So please do remember where your simple squamous epithelium will be found because it might be asked in your examination. So here is another diagram showing you the flat single layer of your scale-like cells or your simple squamous epithelium. This is actually the kidney. So they are found on the sides. You see those very thin cells at the sides? That's your simple squamous epithelium. Yan. Okay. Next, we have simple cuboidal epithelium. So, simple, meaning single layer. Cuboidal, we have cube-like cells with equal length and width. So, the function of your simple cuboidal epithelium is that they are capable of secretion. No? They are capable of secretion, and not only that, they're also capable of absorption. Okay? So they carry out your active transport, facilitated diffusion for secretory functions. Okay? So they are able to do those transport systems because they need to be able to release substances. So they are found in your ovary. So as you can see here, a single layer of cube-like or even spherical appearing cells, no? Very, very obvious there. So in the ovary, we should be able to secrete our hormones and we should be able to secrete also your egg cells. Yeah. Also in your thyroid, as you can see here, a single layer of tube-like or even sa circular appearing cells. And then even here, sa renal collecting tubule, ito, one layer on top and another layer at the bottom of your simple cuboidal cells, capable of secretion. Here's another diagram showing the exact same information. And we can see here, again, that top and bottom layer. This is, again, another example of your kidney specimen. And as said here in the functions, capable of secretion, not only that, but also absorption, but mostly secretion. Next, we have simple columnar epithelium. Simple meaning single layer, columnar meaning tall and thin cells. Now, similar to your cuboidal, they also function for secretion and also for absorption. So, halos similar yung function ng cuboidal and columnar. Secretion and absorption. The only difference between them, of course, number one, appearance nila. One is made of cuboidal cells, another one is made of columnar. And second difference are the parts of the body where they will be found. So your simple columnar epithelium can be found in the small intestine. So just so you know, the small intestine is the major organ responsible for absorption of nutrients. Okay? And digestion. Diyan talaga nangyayari. So your small intestine should be able to produce and secrete mucus and digestive enzymes. So, why does the small intestine need to produce mucus? In order to protect itself from the harmful effects of your enzymes. Okay? Para hindi niya ma-digest yung sarili niya. Okay? So here we can see a uniform appearance of the nucleus, no? Pantay-pantay sila, all at the same level. And then very obvious naman that the cells are taller and they are very thin, no? Here's another diagram showing that. So you see here your single layer of tall cells, no? And even here, you see that very nice uniform appearance of the nuclei and very tall cells. And you even have this, to mga dark staining parts here. And what are this? These are your goblet cells. And the goblet cells are the ones that produce your mucus. Okay? So the goblet cells produce mucus. And what does the mucus do again in the small intestine? It protects itself from self-digestion. Alright? Now, again, your pseudostratified columnar epithelium is a special type of epithelium. Pseudo meaning false, stratified meaning multiple layer. So it appears like it's made up of multiple layers, especially this image here, no? Because of the appearance of the nuclei, some nucleus are on top, some nucleus are at the bottom. It appears like there's many layers, but the truth is, it's only composed of one layer. Okay? So, where will you find your pseudostratified columnar epithelium? Want you to remember they are found in your upper respiratory airways. So, nose, throat, trachea, upper part of our lungs, yan, and even the throat, that's where they are found. And since it's made up of your columnar epithelium, they are composed of tall cells with, of course, here in this picture, this light staining structures here. These are, again, your goblet cells, which produce your mucus. Remember, in your airway, we also have mucus, kaya tayo sinisipon, we have colds, right? And what does the mucus do in our airway? It warms the air. So whenever we inhale, it warms up the air. And it catches those very small particles that could be floating up in the air. So it prevents those particles from entering our lungs. No? So for protection. And as you can see here, the free surface of the cell has extensions. And these are our cilia. So what cytoskeleton is our cilia made up of again? Microtubule. So we have the cilia. And what is the cilia's job? It moves the mucus towards the throat where it is eventually swallowed. So, yun pala yun. Yung mga nakukuwang dumi ng ating mucus, the cilia moves them towards the throat so we can swallow them. Here's another diagram showing that falsely stratified appearance plus the cilia on top. And then here you can see those lightly staining structures, which are your goblet cells, which produce your mucus. So your simple columnar is found in the small intestine, while your pseudostratified columnar is found in your upper respiratory tract. Now that we're done with the simple and pseudostratified, we now go to the stratified epithelium, starting with the stratified squamous epithelium. Stratified meaning several layer of cells, squamous meaning the top layer or the free surface is composed of flat cells. That is further emphasized in our second bullet, that in a stratified squamous epithelium, the deepest layers are composed of cuboidal or even columnar cells. But as the cells stack one on top of each other, the topmost layer becomes flat. And remember, it's already underlined, the naming of stratified epithelium is based on the shape of the surface cells. So if the topmost layer if the free surface is squamous, then we call it stratified squamous. If the free surface cells are composed of cuboidal, we call it stratified cuboidal or stratified columnar if it is composed of columnar cells. Now, just focusing on stratified squamous, there are two types. These are your keratinized stratified squamous and your non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. What's the difference between the two? Of course, the presence of your keratin. What does keratin do? We've already talked about keratin when we discussed cell anatomy. Keratin is made up of your intermediate filament, and it's found on your skin, hair, and nails. So automatically, the keratinized stratified squamous epithelium are found in the same parts of the body: skin, hair, and nails. Going back to keratin, what does keratin actually do? It provides water repellent property to our skin, hair, and nails, and it reduces the loss of water from the body. Remember, I said earlier, the skin functions to prevent loss of water from the body. So yung keratin natin, imagine when you take a bath, after taking a bath, we don't end up looking like a sponge, no? We do not absorb all the water that flows through the skin. And what makes the skin repellent to that diffusion of water is keratin. Okay? Now, I want to highlight the keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. As you can see, the bottommost layer are composed of cuboidal to even columnar cells. But as the cells stack up one on top of each other, eventually it becomes flat. It becomes squamous, no, in appearance. And I want you to remember that in keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, the topmost layer of squamous epithelium has no more nucleus. So that's how you will be able to know if it is keratinized or non-keratinized. No nucleus on top. Yan. So this is an example of your skin, and those cells, that layer of cells that does not have your nucleus is already your dead skin cell layer. Okay? Next, we have your non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. Your non-keratinized obviously does not have keratin. So the cells remain to be alive even on the very top. They are found in lining epithelium. Lining meaning the innermost layer, no, of our mouth, of the vagina, and the esophagus. So what's the function again of your epithelium? Protection. It protects the mouth, it protects the vagina, it protects the esophagus against abrasion, and it acts as a barrier so that hindi madadamage yung mouth, vagina, and esophagus natin whenever they come in contact with other things. Such as, when we eat hard food or yung mga food na medyo rough yung texture, we don't end up bleeding after eating. Why? Because there is a layer of non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium that protects our mouth from the trauma. Or even during sex, di ba? After intercourse, the vagina does not get damaged because it is being protected by your non-keratinizing epithelium. So, what keeps it protected is the moisture. So, kaya nga yung mouth natin parang laging basa, even the esophagus and vagina, ganun, no? They appear moist because water can readily move across the non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, which is the opposite of keratinized. Sa keratinized, water cannot freely move. Kaya nga, di ba, ang skin natin may water-repelling property. And another difference is that the topmost layer has your nuclei. Yan. So here is another example of your stratified squamous epithelium, specifically non-keratinizing. As you can see that there are nuclei on top or on the free surface. Here is another image of that. Yan. Next is another special type of stratified epithelium, and we call it transitional epithelium. Kaya siya tinawag na transitional epithelium because it's able to change shape. So, when it is stretched, it changes its shape. Okay? So, commonly, when it is not yet stretched, the cells appear cuboidal, as you can see here. The cells appear cuboidal. So, the topmost layer is made up of cuboidal cells. But when the organ starts to stretch, it becomes flat. So later I will show you an image. And the only organ in the body where we can find this transitional epithelium is your urinary bladder. Diba? When the urinary bladder is empty, it has the normal appearance, cuboidal. But once it starts to carry or store urine, it gets stretched. Diba? And once that the urinary bladder is fully, it's full of urine, then the cell layers appear flat. So let me show you. Ayan. So here we have the normal appearance of the cells. And as you can see here, they appear cuboidal, even columnar. But then when it is stretched, they appear very flat. Ayan. That's your transitional epithelium. Next, we'll be talking about free surface modification. So from the name itself, these are attachments found on the free surface, no? So commonly, what attachments or modifications are found on the free surface would tell us or would reflect their function. So commonly, there are two types, your cilia and your microvilli. So from our cell anatomy discussion, we already know that the cilia functions to move materials on top of the cell, and the microvilli increases surface area. So how do they appear like? Yeah, like this. So here on the image to the right, we have a pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Again, these are found on your upper respiratory airway. So you have your different levels of nuclei, but all of them are actually attached to your basement membrane. And then they have these structures called goblet cells which produce your mucus, no? So since we have mucus, we should be able to move those mucus. Thus, the modification that we have on the free surface are your cilia in order to move the mucus towards the throat to be swallowed. It's also possible that some other parts of the body you will find your microvilli, and your microvilli is important for absorption. Now, we mentioned that epithelial cells have little to no extracellular matrix. So what keeps the cells in place are your cell connections. They hold one cell next to each other, or they anchor the cells to the basement membrane. So basically, they do three things. They bind cells to each other, they form a permeability barrier, and they are important for communication, which later on, as we discuss them one by one, you'll be able to understand more. So the first two types that we have here are your desmosomes and hemidesmosomes. Desmosomes are mechanical links found on both cells na kinoconnect. So when two cells are connected, the desmosome from one cell will connect to the desmosome of the other cell. And they are made up of glycoproteins. Glycoproteins meaning the combination of sugar and proteins. Then they are called cadherins. So let's look at their desmosomes. There they are, the green structure. Again, one desmosome from one cell and another from the other will combine, and they are made up of your cadherins. Okay? So they just bind or they connect one cell to each other. The next is your hemidesmosomes. So from the name, hemi, they are half desmosomes only. And their job is to anchor the cell to the basement membrane. So here they are at the bottom. They are only found on one side of the cell, and they anchor the cells to the basement membrane. Next, we have your tight junctions, which later on you will find out appear like web structures, no? And they seal off passageway and they bind adjacent cells together. So, itong part na to that they bind adjacent cells together, this is a no-brainer since we're talking about cell connections. But itong part that they seal off passageway, what do we mean by this? This means that materials that pass through an epithelial layer with tight junctions must pass through the cells so that those cells can regulate what materials can cross. In other words, tight junctions allow the passage of substances. Okay? So where are your tight junctions? They are here on top. So these connections, they not only connect your two cells together, but they also allow the passage of substances from one cell to the next. Next, we have your adhesion belts. So adhesion belts are commonly found below your tight junctions. And of course, they anchor the cells to each other. But more than that, they have a special function. They prevent the passage of materials between cells. So if your tight junctions allow the passage of substances, your adhesion belts prevent the passage of substances. So again, they are found below your tight junctions and they prevent the passage of substances. Lastly, we have gap junctions. And gap junctions are actually channels. Okay? They are channels or pores that allow small molecules and ions to pass through one cell to the next. Now, why is that passage important? They are important for communication. Okay? And these channels are made up of your connexin proteins. So here they are. Your gap junctions are made up of channels that allow the passage of substance from one cell to the next. And basically, that's important for communication. The last part of this video, we will be discussing glands. And as mentioned, glands are secretory organs, meaning they are capable of secreting substances to different parts of our body. We also said earlier that your glands are made up of epithelial tissue. Okay? And what substances are being produced by your glands? They can secrete your proteins, they can secrete your lipids, and even complexes or combinations of carbohydrate and protein, carbohydrate and lipid, etc. Okay? Now, when we talk about glands, we must classify them according to their mode of secretion. There are two types, exocrine and endocrine. Now, in their appearance, there is already a difference. Your exocrine glands has a duct. What is a duct? That is a tube. Ito yan, no? Ito yung duct na sinasabi. So, after these cells produce the substances for secretion, the ducts will help transport those substances towards the outside of the body. Kaya siya exocrine. towards the exterior of the body. Okay? While your endocrine are ductless gland. Why are they ductless? Where do the secretions go? The secretions are brought into the bloodstream. So, towards the inside. Kaya endocrine. Exocrine towards the exterior. Endocrine towards the interior or to the bloodstream. Now, let's talk about first your exocrine glands. Your exocrine glands, again, has ducts. These are the tubes that transport the secreted material to the free surface or to the exterior of the body. Now, aside from the duct, the bottom part of your exocrine glands is called the secretory portion. That is the part of the gland that produces the secretions or the secreted material. Ang mga exocrine glands natin, they can be classified according to the appearance of the duct, to the appearance of the secretory portion, and even the mode of secretion. So let's start by talking about or classifying exocrine glands by the appearance of their duct. Or by the main categories muna pala, rather. So the main categories are unicellular, simple, and compound. When we say unicellular glands, they are single cells capable of producing secretions that go to the free surface or to the exterior of the body. Second, we have simple glands. Kapag simple, single, non-branched duct. So it refers to your duct. Okay? Simple glands are single, non-branched duct. As you can see here, one duct, one duct, one duct, one duct. Simple silang tatlo. Apat rather. Then your compound glands are made up of several branched ducts. So as you can see here, this is one duct, another duct, another duct. So compound na sila. So do not worry, I'll discuss them. Yan. So first, let's classify exocrine glands according to the shape of the duct or the shape of the secretory region rather. I'm very sorry. So, secretory region, pwede silang tubular. So, they appear tube-like, very narrow, yung kanilang middle portion. They can appear acinar, circular in appearance, but still very narrow lumen. And then pwede ring alveolar, circular in appearance, and then sac-like yung loob. Okay? So, those are the three shapes of your exocrine glands. Now, if you put the appearance of the duct together with the shape of the secretory portion, you will get these several combinations. First, we have simple tubular. Simple meaning single duct. Tubular meaning tubular yung appearance ng secretory portion. So let's take a look. Yan, this is your simple tubular. Single duct, tubular appearance of your secretory portion. Next, we have simple branch tubular. So, simple meaning there is a single duct, but the secretory portion is now branched. So, here we are. The secretory portion has several branches now. Or simply, this is one branch. One branch. Okay? And that single branch all exits into a single duct. Yan pala. This is one branch and they all empty into a single duct. Kaya siya simple branch tubular. Next, we have simple acinar. So, sac-like because it is acinar. And then a single duct. So, acinar in appearance yung secretory portion, it empties into a single duct. And then, we have simple branched acinar. Simple because it has a single duct, but now the acinar portion is composed of a single branch as well. Yan. This tree is one branch. Okay? They all empty into one single duct. Now, we also have the compound counterparts, no? Compound because several ducts tubular appearance of the secretory portion, and so on. So we have compound acinar and compound tubuloacinar. So this is how they look like. As mentioned, in group of threes, that's one branch. So here we now have 1, 2, 3 branches. And each branch has their own duct. So one duct, second, third. So this is now a compound tubular gland rather. And then here we have acinar and tubuloacinar. Lastly, your exocrine glands can be classified according to their mode of secretion. So we have merocrine, which produces its secretion by exocytosis. Apocrine, which produces its secretory products by pinching off fragments of the gland cells, meaning a portion of the gland cells actually are removed. And then holocrine, wherein the entire cell is removed. So let's take a look. Merocrine again produces your secretory products through exocytosis. So no part of the cell is removed. In apocrine gland, fragments of it are removed. So for you to remember, in apocrine, a portion of the cells are removed. And in holocrine, the whole cell is removed. Okay? So, that's it. That's it for this video. Hopefully, you were able to understand, and please do watch it again in order for some concepts to be clear to you. Thank you, guys.